Are you still hiding? This question might sound quite familiar to you because I'm sure I've asked this in other videos. And I ask it, and I'll continue to ask it because I'm sure you're still hiding. And it's such an important point to hit on because we're getting older. And I'm talking to the ladies primarily, even if there's some gentlemen watching this, I'm primarily speaking to the women because we have this thing about hiding. So in this video, I want to talk about how to stop hiding because your vibrancy and your midlife joy and happiness depends on it. Hello, I'm Pamela Sylvan, the Mojomaker, and I'm your host on this week's episode of Natural Mojo. Today, I want to talk about hiding, like I said. I talk about this in the way that I do, but most of my life I hid. I hid from my greatness, I hid from opportunity, I hid from other people, I even hid from the most important thing of all, which is love. And more importantly, self-love. I didn't feel worthy. And I had to go on almost like a treasure hunt to discover how this was possible. I was looking at other people around me and they seemed to have a grip on this thing. Yes, there are other people, much like myself, who had self-esteem issues and worthiness issues and so forth, but they still managed to get out there and do some things. And I was holding myself back. I was shrinking. I was small. I had put myself in a box. But I have to give myself a little bit of a break. It wasn't totally all my doing. Early in my life, things happened to me that put me in that box or catapulted me in that box. Yet there are some things in which I placed myself in that box as well. But primarily as a young girl, I got messages from the world that I wasn't good enough. I shouldn't be out there being loud and bold and courageous and confident. Stupid things like this. For instance, people would tell me that I was too dark. My skin was too dark and I shrunk a little bit. Or my nose was too big and I shrunk a little bit more. Or I wasn't deserving because of who I was. Oh, big shrink. There comes the box and the lid. And then the big one, when my father told me that I will never amount to anything in life. Not only was I placed in the box and the lid put on the box, but a few nails were also hammered to keep it firmly in place. And that's where my lifelong journey of self-discovery truly began, is when I landed in that box with those messages, including that from my father, lay on my shoulders. So imagine that. This young girl in a box, hiding from the world, hiding from her greatness, just terrified most of the time, didn't want anybody to see her. She didn't want to even see herself. She saw herself as ugly, undeserving, and small. So can you imagine trying to create a life with that on the table? But here is the real golden piece of news, folks. Those things that life had given us, no matter how they came to us, is the gold. This is the gift that we are given. We think gifts are supposed to be pretty and glorious and golden. Sometimes the gold nuggets are those things that look like trouble, that look like grief, that look and appear and feel heavy. These are the things that life gives us so we can work at it. We can chisel away the debris until we find that glorious thing that we've been looking for. And the glorious thing that you're continually looking for is you. So I set out on a journey, and that journey that we talk about all the time, the hero's journey. Well, I guess mine was a hero's journey of sorts because it took a lot of doing. It took a lot of climbing, and it took a lot of forward momentum. It took a lot of falling down and getting up and patting myself on the shoulder to keep moving forward and finding mentors and becoming a mentor and looking at jobs and finding jobs and having to leave jobs and relationships that didn't work out and a marriage that fell apart and getting fat and all of these things that happened to me and going broke and then having to move and then and then rebuilding my life from scratch in my 50s. It was all part of the great journey. But I said yes to my life because somewhere deep inside of me I knew there was greatness. And this is what I want to talk to you today about: how to stop hiding from that glorious part of yourself, which I call mojo. You have mojo. What happened to it? Where did it go? How did the flame become extinguished as you move through life? And as I said already, there's so many things that happen to us, different things happen to each of us, that puts us in the box. Not everybody lands in the box. much in the way that I did. Some people sidestepped the box, or some people had no concept of the box because of the environment in which they were brought up in. And I always wonder how people were so quote unquote lucky to have sidestepped that box. But you know what? It doesn't matter. This is the gift that I was given, and this is the path that I needed to follow, so I am following my path. So let's get started on how you can stop hiding and how you can begin to take that unique journey as well. So, number one, start off with self-reflection. This is a big one. A lot of people do not know themselves well enough, or are too afraid to go into that part of themselves where the answers to what's happening with them may lay. And this is why it might be a good opportunity to start working with a therapist or a counselor and or even a mentor. Some people work with both. Either way, if it's something that's a little bit too frightening or too difficult for you, find some assistance or find some help. I started off earlier in my 20s after I graduated. I knew that there was something going on with me, so I enlisted the help of a therapist, and I would go every week and tell my story and start to chip away at the narratives that were holding me down, because I knew that I was better than this. There was more to me than what information I was given from the outside world, so I got myself some help. But it was finding the opinions and the thoughts and the thinking and the mindsets and the narratives or the actions and the habits that were holding me back. Now, even though all of those things happened to me as a youngster, it was now up to me to control my actions and to control my thinking. This was my responsibility. It no longer had anything to do with my parents. My parents are long gone. So I can't keep blaming them. It's now on me. But I see this as an opportunity to become stronger and more resilient and more courageous, because I get to dive into those deep, dark places. So this is why I'm talking to you about this. I'm holding myself up as a model for you, because if I can do this, and I was the most terrified person I had ever seen or encountered up until that point. If I can stop the messiness, if I can stop the heartache, if I can stop the tears, and if I can move myself forward, so can you. It's a choice and it's a decision. And I'm not saying it's an easy choice or an easy decision, but it is a decision. And I'm holding my hand out to you, so let's do this together. I will continue doing this work till the end of my days. I'm just rising by degrees. The more that I move away from those old ways and old stories, the higher I rise, and that's what I'm offering here for you today. So self-reflection is a deep, deep first step to make. It could be the big step of your life. It can be the next step in your evolution, and it might be a small one for you depending on who you are or where you are on the journey and on your path. But either way, self-reflection, I have to self-reflect continually, sometimes many times a day or sometimes once a week, depending on what's happening with me. But it always starts with me. It always starts with you too. If anything is going on and it's feeling kind of wonky or the energy is off in some way, stop and reflect. What's happening? Who's saying what? What are you listening to? What's the vibrations in your environment all about? Stop and listen and take heed, okay? Write these things down. Sometimes we forget the patterns in our life. Write them down. Keep a journal, a self-reflection journal, and speak to yourself within that journal, okay? So that's the first one. If that's all you can do for now, start diving in to some serious self-reflection, either alone or partner up with someone like a therapist, counselor, and or mentor. Okay, so let's move into number two. This is a tough one for many people, especially in the society we live in, where we want to come off looking good. And even though the trope of being vulnerable is a big one, especially made famous by author Brene Brown, we are terrified of it. We can talk about being vulnerable and authentic and all of that, but to actually do it, it takes courage, it takes confidence. And the reason is we want to belong. And we feel that if we talk about our true selves, we will be cut off from our tribes and from our others. And a sense of belonging is a huge part of who we are as a human being on this planet. So I totally understand. But this is why being vulnerable is such a big part of this process of the great undoing, of the great awakening, of the rising from where you are, where you find yourself, to where you want to go. Being vulnerable enough to see into your shadow self, to find the dark places within yourself, to understand the places that you continually trip up, to find the narratives to tell your story, to be honest, to be open to other people and even to yourself, because I will guarantee you are hiding a lot of things from yourself. You don't want to see the things that you think. You don't want to see the habits which you continually spiral out and trigger on a daily basis. It's easier to ignore it. It's easier to feign ignorance, isn't it? I know it is, because that's how I lived my life. I would push and shove and stuff things away and go on about my business, only creating a bigger mess. I like to call it a turd sundae. You know, an ice cream sundae with it's got the whipped cream and cherry on top, but underneath is a big seething hot mass of poop, a turd, right? So it looks pretty, but it's a hot mess underneath, and a lot of people are living their lives like a hot turd sundae. Looks pretty, seething hot mess underneath. Continue to be vulnerable enough and to be brave enough to get into those places that are causing these problems. And I have to step out of the sun. I'm in the light, and the light is a glorious thing, but when you're on camera, not so glorious. There I am, out of the sun. So let's move into the next. This next point sort of goes hand in hand with the last point around vulnerability, and it's about challenging limiting beliefs. Our limiting beliefs about ourselves and the world around us contains us in a certain place. Some people have beliefs that make them expansive and they can do big things. This used to be my story, that had beliefs that contained them in a very small space on this planet. A lot of people say, oh, well, it's just me, or no, it's not just you. It's what you've accepted about yourself and about the world. I call that your worldview. And your worldview, you might be running around with a very tiny worldview and self-concept, which only allows you to do so much and go so far and rise so high. The point is to start challenging the beliefs about yourself. Remember, I said earlier that my father said, I will never amount to anything. And that was a belief that kept me from rising. And I had to challenge that. And that was a big wall in which to break through up here. I started to see evidence of what he said. He's right. I will never amount to much. Look at my relationships. Look at my bank accounts. Look at my opportunities. So I believed that self-concept. I believed the story. That was my belief. It was quite limiting. So I had to challenge that. And this is now what I teach people, how to challenge and break through those beliefs, especially during our midlife journey. We only have so much time left. So I know maybe you have accepted your life as it is, but what about those of you that said, you know what, I still have a lot of energy in me, a lot of verb, a lot of pep, and now is the time to go in and work on those beliefs and challenge them and step out of them. And here's the really fun or funny part about this. You can step out of it anytime you want. There was never really anything holding on to you. For me, all the people that laid all of those heavy beliefs on me don't even exist anymore. They're long gone. So what, in essence, is holding me down is this. Nobody else. I'm in a park here in the busy city of Toronto. Nobody else knows. Nobody else cares. The only person holding me back is me, if I, in fact, am holding me back. So this is what I'm talking about when it comes to you. There is nobody else physically holding you down except you. It's time to challenge those beliefs. And I'll add a caveat to this. When you start challenging those beliefs, your earth is going to move a little bit, because people only know you based on how you've been acting. So if you start doing things differently, saying things differently, believing things differently, it's going to shake up your world a little bit and cause some ripple effects. But that's okay. Stand strong, stand firm. You deserve this. You deserve to move into more expansion in your life. And as we grow older, and I'm going to say, ladies, people up until this point have experienced us as the number one nurturer, and nothing wrong with being the nurturer, but you also need to start heavily nurturing yourself and really living as that person that you came here on earth to be. You're not somebody's other half stuck to your hip the whole time until you pop out of existence. You came here to be you. And who is that? Have you even made the effort or the attempt to discover your passions and your desires and all the things that you are capable of unfolding within you? Or have you just decided, you know what, that's it, there's no way that you can ever aspire to such greatness within yourself? And I say you can. I'm not trying to get you to Carnegie Hall. I'm just trying to open the lid on that box that you've been sitting in most of your life and peering in and seeing what's in there for you. All right, so let's move on to the next. Surround yourself with supportive people. This is so important. We can't live life on our own. And I know, especially since the pandemic, a lot of people have opted to live life on their own, and that's fine. I'm not asking you to hook up into a relationship, but surround yourself with like-minded people. That's why I really believe in circles, especially female circles, where we can come together and talk, especially if they're intergenerational, and having the wisdom flow down from the older women in the group, the grandmother circles, I love to call them, because really they're the ones with the wisdom. They've lived full lives, they've lived tumultuous lives, they've lived passionate lives, they've lived exciting, adventurous lives. They've lived and they've learned, and they hold a lot of wisdom. One of my, if I had to say, if I had a regret in my life, is not finding out more information from my grandmother. I should have asked more questions, but that's how it was. I won't make that mistake again. So I am in the company of many older women who I'm asking questions and learning about their passions, and learning about the fire within them that's still lit, and learning about the things that they've come through. They hold such beautiful stories, and they hold such beautiful awareness about themselves now. Now, not all of them, but a lot of them. And those are the women that I am attracted to, the ones that see themselves for the greatness in which lives within them. So find other people who are doing what you aspire to do, or being how you aspire to be. The energy is there. Don't just sit in places that are not good for you. And I know a lot of you are just, it's just habit. You're sitting with people or being with people just because, well, they might be family or friends you've had forever, and the toxicity is just surrounded you and it's choking the life out of you. I'm saying make a different choice. You don't have to divorce people, but sometimes some people need to be left behind, and I had to make that choice myself. In order for me to expand, certain people had to exit my life. All right? So think about that. Surround yourself with people that have that mojo energy and power. So, with all of this conversation I've had thus far about stop hiding and to expand and all of that, I also want to caution you to take small steps. You don't have to pop out in big ways or huge ways or anything like that. So don't scare yourself into inaction. Take small steps. Take the steps you can make. And once you take that step and you look around and you see nothing's happened, and no one's even looking. Most people are too busy staring at their phones to even notice what you're up to or care what you're up to. All right? So take the steps, take small steps, and add to it. It's like compounding interest. You take one step, two other steps are added. Sometimes you might slide back, but that's how it goes. Keep moving. It's just like when you're investing. You get some gains, you have some losses, but it's tracking forward most of the time, okay? And so will your progress be. Take small steps, expand, get courageous enough to use your voice in conversations with other people. Maybe are you one of those people that go to a meeting and you sit in the back of the room and you never say anything, but you want to say something, but you never say anything, right? Take those steps where you put the energy into using your voice and see how it feels. You'll be all nervous, you'll have butterflies, but it'll be so exciting when you do it, and you will see that you could have done it all along. So the next time, not only do you use your voice, you are now at the front of the room. Okay, so take small steps, find the courage to use your voice, and start the move to expand. Before we finish up this video today with today's final point, I just want to invite you to visit me at mojoresources.ca, and there I have a handout called What If. I've been talking about this handout for a long time, only because of the power in which it holds. It's a little document, a few questions are added to it, but they are so important. If you want to stop hiding, here's a place to start. It's the place of self-discovery. Some questions, or maybe writing prompts, if you will, but start asking yourself, what if you can live your life more expansive? So go to mojoresources.ca and download What If and start uncovering your true self today. So let's move into today's last point. And really, it's what this has all been about. And it's finding and living through compassion, self-compassion first. Right? We talk about self-compassion for others, and a lot of us dive in and give most of our life and our life force away to nurturing and self-compassion to others, and there's nothing wrong with that, but really you need to take some of that back for yourself and to really be compassionate with yourself and not to beat yourself up. There are times when all of this work that I'm talking about will not go well for you, but that's okay. It just means that you're doing something. You have pulled a thread, and things are starting to unravel as they should, because you do not want those concrete thoughts and vibrations staying with you the rest of your life. Especially now that we're in our midlife and beyond. I call myself a junior senior because I'm no longer in that phase of my life. You might have guessed through my graying hair and so forth. But there is not a lot of time left to stay stuck. But be compassionate with yourself. Love yourself. Do things to really add that vibrancy to yourself that you might have been lacking. So these are the 6 points I wanted to bring to you today to help you to stop hiding. You owe it to yourself to stop hiding. You owe it to life to stop hiding. You're here with purpose and reason. So discover what that is and start off with that first point by deep reflection all the way down to number 6 of self-compassion. And with that, I know if you take that first step, this coming week will be one of a huge surprise and difference for you, okay? So my name's Pamela Sylvan, and it was my pleasure to be here with you this week, and I'll see you again next week. Bye-bye.